We like to start off.
Brett,
How
I
are you, Daddy-O?
I have not spoken to you in forever, right? Because I've known you for
Aloha.
a long time.
Yeah.
So, and also,
Ages.
out of any of these that I've done so far, I feel like the most unprepared, only because I know we were planning on speaking like for weeks to come. But today just worked out to be the perfect opportunity, and I just wanted to like grab it because it's so hard to get on the same schedule as other people. It's really hard.
So when you've got it free, did you get a chance to listen to the excerpt?
I did a little bit.
Okay.
I did a little bit.
Thoughts and feelings there. Like,
It's intriguing.
okay.
Well, if people are just signing in, let me like go back because you are Brett Edward Stout. Stout as like the same as the beer Stout.
It is.
Yep.
Goes
And you
all
are
the way back to
author,
I am.
a Marine.
Yep.
I was reading your Instagram, and the one thing that caught me off guard, and I'm not sure what this is, but so I'm going to talk about is reef keeper. What is that? A Manhattan merman. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't know Brett was a merman. I know he was doing some cool shit, but
We're not all cat ladies.
yes, single. I'm the
You're clearly in my top 10 favorite childless cat ladies.
Yes,
Just so you know.
I love that. I'm not single though. That's the one thing that like counts me out. So
You're double?
yeah, double married.
Whoa.
I found someone to fucking marry this ass, and I'm not gonna
Whoa.
fuck it up.
Who's your gay lover?
He's an amazing guy that also goes by the name of Mike. We just celebrated
Aw,
our
yay.
10th year wedding anniversary together
Nice.
for 18 years.
My ex Mike is also married to a Mike. So
That doesn't. You are okay, and you are currently. Are you still New York City? Are you like New York City forever and ever? Is that like that's just you? That's a good fit. That's your favorite pair of shoes. New York City.
here's the thing.
Give it
I'm
to
a
me.
person who's come to terms with what I think sometimes people would shorthand to be shortcomings. One of my things that you might describe as a flaw is that I love having too many things to do. Like,
Ooh.
if I don't have so many projects on my plate that I could never possibly finish them, I'm not happy. I'm not productive. I'm not maximizing what I can do. And there's nowhere that does that better than New York City.
But you finish these projects because I was going to say I'm very similar to this. I always have one or two or three or four things I'm doing in order to keep feeling alive and the pulse. But then a lot of times I'll not finish each of these activities, and then I create more, and then I'll promote something online that I have an idea for, this huge project I'm going to do, and then I'm just like, I don't get around to finishing.
I think if you had asked me even 3 years ago, if I was, well, no, we'll say 4 years ago, if I was getting things done, I think I would have said no. So like, since we're talking about like, this is book 2. This thing is so big. This book took me.
How big is it?
It's so thick. It took me 15 years to finish this book. I really, really struggled. Every time I picked up Semper Civilian, my life would fall apart.
And just to put on hold quick, this is part of your Gay Marine stories, right? This
Yeah,
isn't
so
your
this is
this isn't
part
your
of-
newest project. This is like your last project, right? The Gay
This
Marine
is my
stories.
literary series, which it has always been intended from the very outset to be a 5-book series from June of 2001 until September 11th, 2001. That's always been the game plan. Looking at age, race, gender, class, and sexuality, kind of specializing in each one of them along the way. Book 2, I picked it up, and I had my fancy job that I had when we first met when I was
Right.
at Here Media, and I got laid off. And was nothing that I did. I was doing awesome at my
Right.
job, and I
If
got
I don't
laid
say
off
so myself, yeah.
for no reason of my own.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't have to say that because my bosses said
Right.
that to the owner of the company, and so
It was just sort of circumstantial. Yeah.
it was arbitrary.
Okay.
There was a guy who was promoted to senior vice president of marketing, and he made the arbitrary decision to lay off every single person in the company who had marketing in their job title. regardless of what they were doing or what they were doing, to replace them with his two advertising assistants. And so I just got like dumped. And so both of my bosses, who really went way out of their way to stand up for me and say, hey, this is our ideas guy. This isn't right to do this to him. And basically got told I get to be this guy's learning lesson about making bad mistakes.
About firing
And
you.
like, yeah, like, great for him. So that happened, and then I went into another position.
Did
and
you
I
also
got
work
laid
for
off.
Scruff? Did you work for Scruff, or am I just like
No,
putting all the people together in my whole life? I don't know. There's about 10 years that I'm just like, have we fucked?
Let's
Were you
not
in-
talk about Scruff.
Okay,
and
we'll not talk about
people who
Scruff.
worked at Scruff who had opinions about me. For
Opinions
whatever.
are like assholes, and I know for a fact you have a beautiful asshole.
I do. I have a very. I take. I plan to have it all my life, and I want to make sure that I've properly taken care of it.
Okay.
So,
This is going to be so funny for somebody else to listen to because, well, just first of all, just because it's sort of like us catching up in real time. But then I always want to like pump my brakes and just kind of include people because I don't want them to be like when you go out to meet an old friend and you talk, and there's a third person there, they don't know what's going on. Like,
Well, yeah,
with your book
which is
series, because
especially-
we keep jumping into like book number 2, but I want them to know about the whole series, the Game Marine
it's
stories.
especially hard because you and I are both those types of people who are like, we'll go into the list of things that we did, and people were, like, you said it before, was just like, how are you not 80? And I think that you and I are both at that line. It's just like,
At which life are you at? Yeah, I've had another life since we last talked, but I mean, this is about you.
I know.
My husband told me that podcasts is not about me; it's about the person I'm talking to. I want to hear all about you.
Well, I want to hear about me too. No. So, anyways, with the, every time I would pick up book number 2, my life would basically fall apart, and so it kind of became this project that started getting in its own way, even inside my own head. And I feel like as an artist, I have a pretty decent understanding of who I am. I've been working on being an author since I was 9 years old.
Is
Like,
this the
I
first
have-
piece that you've written? Just to give a quick background of yourself, is this the first published work that
first
you've done?
book that I wrote that was published was Sugar Baby Bridge, and it was nominated for like Lambda Literary and a bunch of other awards and got me a little bit of attention. The foreword is written by the Director of Human Rights for the state of Iowa, and so it got a lot of accolades for being what some people were describing as post-gay fiction, if we want to get fancy.
Okay.
Which is which is nice and wonderful, and I'm really, really, really proud of that book. But at the same time, it was part of this like master thesis that I was trying to create within the space, because when I began writing, the majority of what was available to me, I don't want to ever disparage what existed that I was unaware of or that I didn't have access to, and I'm not meaning this to be negative towards any of these genres, because these genres are all valid and there's wonderful work in there. So the landscape of gay fiction when I wrote the book was pornographic, it was camp, it was stories of people who were dying or people who had grown up hating themselves for being gay and wishing that they were straight, or there were these amazing characters who needed to die some horrible death in the end. And like, where are these dynamic characters who live who aren't struggling with this identity of, oh, I wish I wasn't gay, because I didn't grow up that way. And I think that that's an experience that some of us were having, especially in this world that was post-1996, so post-second generation Proteus inhibitors for, those of us over the hill.
Sure.
Yeah, so like,
And also you, I'm still just trying to loop everybody else in. You're an ex-Marine. Are you always a Marine once you're a Marine?
You're always a Marine.
So
That's what we're
ex-Marine
supposed to say.
So ex-Marine is wrong. And what years were you a Marine, or when did that end? Because I know that contributed to a lot of like your thought process, I think, for these books.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the whole thing. Is I served from 1997 to 2002 as a Russian linguist in the U.S. Marine Corps, and while I was in and all of the time since, I've been bombarded, I won't say haunted, maybe haunted by this question of what was it like to be in the Marines? What was it like to be gay in the Marines? What was it like to have been in the Marines?
My first thoughts, my first questions.
Yeah, and so how do you answer that in 25 words or less? And so the answer is that you really can't. And I thought really, really hard, and this is where the kind of the opportunity comes in. As an artist, you're always looking for what is the point of view, what is the art that needs to be made. Because I take, regardless of whether or not people like the royal family or not, the royal family have some really great rules on public speaking. Does this thing need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? Especially in 2008, when we were just before the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the answer was yes, absolutely yes. Why was being a Marine not antithetical at its core to the idea of also being gay? And how do you describe that? And so I decided that I was writing these stream of consciousness books where you live my character's life from the moment they're waking up out of their dream until the moment they go to bed. Every car ride, every walk, every run, every trip to the bathroom, every meal. And you get to experience his life as a Marine for a week. And then, of course, you have to create a narrative that people can follow.
Right. I mean, I'm just a typical... clown. I'm basically Bianca Del Rio, but without makeup on. True. But like, I have always sort of been interested when you started writing these books, because the topics, some of my favorite topics in the world, gays, Marines, what are some of the other words? Military, amateur, porn. And so when you put all those words together, I mean, it makes me out to be pretty basic, or pretty like a basic gay guy who's sort of has those things. And when I think of Marines and gays, like, I immediately think of like homoerotic situations. That's my first thought. I'm like, I want to be like, did you share a room with guys? Did you guys jerk off under your blankets? I know there's way more intellectual things to talk about, but those are my thoughts. Like, were they nervous with you in the room? Did they, anyways? Yeah.
So there's, and this is one of the things that's central to the books. And you're somebody who's always like a really big person who's just like, don't be heavy on the gimmick and light on the talent. And so like, if I'm gonna like wade my way into this book, it better be actually good. Like, I better actually be doing something. I better really be accomplishing what I'm setting out to accomplish. And so it can become really, really easy to fall into just saying something that's tittillating
and salacious, right?
Yeah,
just add with a boner at the end of every sentence. Blah, 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 blah. With a boner. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, like, book one delves really deep into the idea of like a sugar daddy relationship. But like, my core as an artist is always about this area of gray and moral ambiguity. I don't ever want my characters to ever have the moral high ground. And so it enters into this sugar daddy relationship, but nobody ever says anything. So the guy with the money never asks, and the guy with no money is constantly afraid that he, is this the time? Is this the time that we go up to the cash register and he asks me to pay, and I have to vocalize, I have no money. Like,
it's sort of like the inside of both of their heads, and then instead of like spelling it out for you, you kind of present the situation, and then you're just like, is this going to come out of my head and be vocalized, or are we just going to go play along in this game of
and so like
son,
book one,
dad.
I don't want to again spoil things for people, but book one gets really, really heavy into that, and book two delves into kind of this new kind of space, which is this space of social cachet, where Brad meets this slightly older, much more famous gossip columnist in Hawaii, because he's gone back to Hawaii where he had been serving.
Aloha.
Gossip columnist, and this gets into this femininity, masculinity kind of archetype problem that we were especially having in 2001 within the gay community, because you have Danny, who is praised and loved and invited to these fancy, famous parties because he's this completely contrived, over-the-top, homosexual, flamboyant character. And then if he actually were to go into the space that belongs to homosexuality, nobody wants anything to do with him. And so you have Brad, who basically just exists and everybody projects masculinity onto him because he's just not like speaking, but the reason he's speaking is because he's terrified to say anything. And so because he's being quiet, everybody's like, oh, he's so masculine and stoic. And he's like, no,
silent.
he's just like spiraling.
Oh, that's
like,
sort of, it's the judging the book by its cover classic.
By toting Brad around, Danny's character gets extra cachet amongst those people of his set. Brad gets a chance to go to the cool parties, and so they begin to mutually use each other in this way that becomes just progressively nasty in how they're kind of like approaching each other, because there's this unrequited kind of sexual dynamic between them, and I really wanted to hunker down on that within that one. And then I felt after I'd successfully done those two books that this was the point where like the thing that you brought up can really come into play, and we can really start to talk about this, because now you've got at least 2 weeks of Brad's life, almost 3 weeks of Brad's life, because the second book is so much longer, where we can talk about sex. Let's talk about sex amongst Marines.
Sex
Let's
they're
talk
actually
about this.
having, or sex they're thinking about?
So, book 3, which finally came out, Point and Shoot.
Good for you.
Brad,
I'm also good for you, because it's a fucking challenge and effort and work and collaboration and money, and that's just to get the book printed, and then marketing and getting people to pick it up, and
can I tell you
selling your soul to the devil.
$1,000 and 2 years that it took to produce the audiobook for book 2. Yeah, if everybody listening to the show goes out and buys the audiobook for book 2, that'll be like the thing that gets us to making book 1, book 3.
Breaking even is sort of a goal, right?
Yeah. Like I've always known this is art. This is not something that's almost ever going to kind of net me anything from like a financial standpoint. So I have to go into this with that kind of like purity of an artist, if you will.
I don't want to say like a hobby, because it's sort of like, it's insulting sometimes when someone is an actual author or journalist, when someone asks them, what do you do for work?
Sacrificial martyrdom, maybe?
What does your feet look like? What do your feet look like? Okay.
Well, yeah, and like as I go into like book 3, it's like now it's like, okay, I don't mind selling book 3 off of the sex a little bit, because I know how I've treated it, and I know what I've done, and I know how I've written. My publisher, when he finished reading Point and Shoot, we were on the phone, and he goes, Brett, the first thing I have to say is this is quite possibly the most graphic yet least salacious sex I have ever read in my entire life.
Graphic, least salacious. Is it a tease? It sounds like it's
not,
graphic,
no,
but it's a tease.
Like,
it's going to give me blue balls?
I pull no punches. And again, I don't want to spoil things for anybody who wants to read these. The third book came out almost 2 months ago now.
Oh, so it's more recent than I thought. I'm sorry, we lost contact for a while, or haven't talked. So it's okay. It's more recent than I thought. Okay.
Well, like at the heart of what I want to talk about when we start talking about sex between Marines is this concept. So what is the relatability? Because I'm not just trying to write a pornographic book. I'm trying to write this like master gay culture. And one of those cultural touchstones that we live with as gay men, for the most part, and nothing's a monolith, but many of us have had interactions with straight men, and it becomes really, really easy because, like, oh my god, I hooked up with this straight guy, he's totally not straight, he's gay. It's like, that's not true. You can fuck a guy who is straight, and they will still be straight in the end. So if that's the case, what's at play here? What's going on? And that's what I really wanted to get into.
Kink?
It's not exactly that. And again,
because you've like dabble in exactly what like turns myself on, and like what interests me, and what like attracts me in my like Pornhub searches. I love the whole like amateur gay, straight, porn, military.
I mean,
You know?
it's
but a little thing that's killed me a little bit about that, like the stuff that's actually not true, because I'll watch some sort of like porn
Bang
companies,
Bros.
and I'm like, and I'm seeing these guys who are like in this totally scenario. They're like, hey, dude, I'm down and out, and he's wearing like camouflage pants. And then he gets blown for money. Then I'm like, that's not true, because you were like a Mormon missionary in a video I watched earlier. So I've sort of lost like hope for them, unless I really feel like I want the person, the straight guy, to like, I want to see like struggle in his face of the decision that he's making.
It's the classic putting a famous actor in a horror movie. It's really hard. Like, yeah, they succeeded with Hereditary by putting Toni Collette in there. But for the most part, the reasons why horror movies can grab you is this idea of this reality that you want to buy into. And if you recognize the person and know that that person lives as characters outside of the horror movie, sometimes it becomes hard. So, like, when you watch these movies, it can really, like, take you out of the fantasy. But what is the core of that fantasy is something that I think is interesting to kind of play with and explore. And so for anybody who's listening who's younger, they won't necessarily know that in this late 90s, early porn had its kind of second renaissance there. The only amateur porn before Tumblr was basically amateur military porn. And so it became this whole category unto itself. You could go to the Blue Store in Manhattan, and there were 6 shelves. And I don't mean like 6 shelves this way.
Right.
6 entire bookcases.
Like double-sided.
Just of amateur military porn. And so because it was such a prevalent thing, you almost couldn't be gay in the military in that moment and not have it touch your life in some type of a way. You were very aware of its existence, and I wanted to be able to handle that in a respectful way, because I think that a lot of people go to a place where it's like, oh, these people were conned into it, or they were tricked into it with alcohol.
Well, that's sort of like...
Yeah. That's not what's happening in this
getting
book.
a little bit
That's
glitchy.
not. So this is, who are these people and why did they get in front of this camera? And creating these dynamic, believable characters. And because this one was going to really kind of pull it, just like, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
All of the sex scenes that occur in this book are based on real sexual encounters that I personally had that are fictionalized and repurposed.
That's exciting, because I literally, when I watched those, I
can't
was
claim
like,
they're not real.
I'm like,
I was there.
Yeah, because I literally, when I watched like those sites, like military porn sites, I'm like, okay, they did it for the money, they were hard out, and then I used to always think, like, if they were getting their dicks up and fucking a guy's ass, they were at least bisexual. So I don't believe they're like straight, but. You know, you're someone with these personal experiences,
with
but
a lot of women
you know
when
what?
I was in the Marines, and none of the pussy
Did you
eating
film
made
it?
me straight. I didn't film. Well, we
I wanna
didn't
see
have
it.
cell phones with cameras on them back then. Remember?
You know what? I dabbled into this world a little bit. I have always been a civilian, but when I lived in Waikiki,
You've been in a few Marines.
Yeah. Well, when I lived in Waikiki, it's huge
you and
military.
I both lived in Hawaii.
Yeah. And it's like it was a huge military base, and I had some of the hookups. This was before the apps on your phone, but it was like their manhunt. Actually, the same app that I met my current husband. But I would meet these guys who was like, oh yeah, they say they're bi, they say they're straight, they say they're in the military, they say they're butch because they're wearing a baseball cap. And then there's one guy I'll remember forever. It's probably the best sex I've ever had in his life. His name was Critter. He was probably like 24, and he came over, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of these situations. We'll probably sit on my couch, look forward, and just like jack off together, and that'd be fine for me. But he came over to the house, and he was bottom within like 2 minutes, and it was not the first time, the second time, or the third time. It just was like this passionate, butt-pounding sex from this guy who said... He claimed to be straight, so who am I to say anything different? But like, I've had very similar stories like that in Waikiki, a whole bunch of them. But I never knew. I always thought they were faking. I'm like, okay, you're faking it. I'll see you at Hula's bar later.
When you write it as an author and as a Marine, I've got a lot like going on here, because it's not like I'm an unknown quantity or this like anonymous Marine. So like it was crucial to me that I wrote this in a way that other Marines were gonna be okay with, that other military people, and like this is my one of my favorite.
Because it could come from the angle of like a book that's like outing these big secrets.
One of my favorite things from my writing career that has happened is I have all of the gay Marine writers blurbed the book. They've all read it. So the author of A Pink Marine, Rich Merritt, Eric Alva, all the big gay Marines that are out there in the writing space all signed on. Jeff Key, and I'm super, super honored that they would allow me to attach it, but it also means that I had to write it in a way that they would be willing to do that. Really, I even got Admiral Steinman blurbed the book as well, which is really, really
that's pretty. That's
cool.
pretty special.
But like, it's a book about making pornography, but it can't be pornography. And so, like, when we circle back to when my publisher was talking about
most graphic,
it not being salacious.
Least salacious, yeah.
I need to be able to describe what happens within that sex scene without it actually becoming porn. Because if you've been on a porn set before?
By accident, I was
it's
looking at...
It's rarely sexy. It's very rarely
the ones
actually
that are like,
sexy.
Well, the ones that are like sort of like, yeah, trying too hard to be like a regular movie. I like graphic and dirty, like handheld phone videos, like that kind of thing. Like Craigslist trick comes over. I've always called myself a back alley whore. Like I'm not prude and I'm not an angel, but I do things sort of like discreetly. Not because like people don't want to know that I'm gay.
Not like those front alley whores.
Well, there's a lot of people like at bars. Like I'll go to bars and like people want to like meet and make out and grope. I'm like, I get really sort of, and there might be my own issues, but I'm sort of like, I get a little bit uptight about that because I'm caring about what everybody thinks. But I'm like, let's go blow each other and behind the bar in the garbage can. But I'm a back alley whore.
Yeah,
my new memoir, Back Alley Whore.
You and I have Hawaii together. We also have San Francisco together. And
I'm currently in San Diego. I'm in another military town.
Well, yeah,
too.
You're in San Diego now, but when we did the bathtub thing, you were in San Francisco,
yes.
I think.
Yes,
because I did your bathtub show once.
Yes, because they had the whole clawfoot bathtubs. Yeah.
Yeah, but like before it was a video bar, I was a little 19-year-old Marine with a fake ID at the Badlands. And then when Badlands became a video bar, I immediately went to the Detour.
Yes.
So book one begins at the Detour.
Oh, you're kidding me. Those are some of my very first gay bar memories of when I moved to San Francisco when I was too young to get in, but I sort of just like, when it was those days where you could kind of like, if you looked cute or dressed well or something, they'd slip you through the doors.
Been pounded on the bar while it was open at the Detour.
I don't have a sexy story, but I got in a fight with somebody there. I'm not a fighter.
Ooh.
I'm not a fighter at all, but I remember I was a big drinker. And I remember...
Was the bartender named America there? Did you ever meet him? He was sweet.
We're very much still in the same sort of like friends. Yes, America was there, but there was another bar. I can't remember I think his name was Brad. But I got in a fight and I got thrown out of the bar. There was like... I remember the bar had a chain link. It's all the chain link and the benches in the middle. Yeah, someone grabbed my butt, and I was like, and I was drunk, and like that, and I remember just being like, I didn't want that to happen to me at the bar, and someone like grabs my ass, and I turn around, and I like say, don't do that, and he's like, and this is what pushed my buttons. He said, you're in a gay bar, that's what happens here, and I was like, oh, that's not cool, and then we got in a fight, and then I got thrown out, and my friend said, come back tomorrow, but you gotta leave.
We've gotta at some point like. When the elephant's no longer in the room, like there's so many things as a community that we do need to come to terms with. But unfortunately, a lot of the things in the gay community that we have to come to terms with are mice in a room with a giant angry elephant. And until we get this elephant out of the room, that we're dealing with this menacing thing that can break the entire walls down and ruin everything that we already
Wait, who's the
had.
elephant and who's the mice? That might be really
Trump.
clear, but like, okay.
We have to get past this moment before we can really start to take accountability for some of these things. We need to get past this big moment worthy.
That's so funny you say that.
Within the gay community, we need to talk about consent in gay spaces. But like, we can't get to that conversation until, you know, we might be, until we get past this place where we could be corralled into it depends and have paragraph 175, you know, 2.0. So
wait, what is that? That sounded so smart.
that was the Nazi criminal code that criminalized homosexuality.
Okay.
That when those in the concentration camps were let go, the gays were not. They were left in the camps. And then when the camps were taken down, they were transferred to prisons. And they were not actually, the remaining, I believe, 6 of them that were still alive by the time they decriminalized sexuality in Germany were let go in the 90s. There's a great documentary about it called Paragraph 175.
See, these are the things that are on the table with Dump in the running still. Actually, earlier I was getting so mad at somebody that I don't know.
Lady Bunny?
Yes. I'm fucking mad at Lady Bunny. Like, I think she's smart and she's right in a lot of ways, but I'm just like, I hate right now when the people are hardcore bagging on Democrats. And like, I don't know.
Here's the thing.
She doesn't know me. It doesn't matter. I'm nobody. She's Lady fucking Bunny when I have such respect for it. But like, I feel weird when these people are, I want them to bag on them after we get into the office. After Democrats get in the office.
I completely kind of agree. Lady Bunny wouldn't know me from a hole in the ground, despite the fact that we've probably had 50 conversations. And I don't mean just like, oh, hey, like walking by. Like, she and I had actually talked. But like, her brand is a contrarian brand. Her brand is one that lends itself to, like, the fallacy of the magical choice. That is like, oh, I don't support A or B. Well, there's only A or B. And so it allows her to kind of exist in that space. It's just, I tend to agree that that's not a space we should really be like playing with right now.
It's like, I just feel like it's slightly
get past the existential
I feel like it's
elephant
dangerous.
threat in the room, and then let's have the contrarian kind of argument. You know, which is not to get into any of the individual very hot button things that she's kind of playing around with, but like I don't necessarily like. I think that there's some criticisms being lobbed at her that it's just like, well, if that's the criticism you haven't been paying attention to who Lady Bunny is. But at the same time, it's just like, we can change the channel for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing about her. It's like, I just, I love following her and her shit. I repost her shit all the time because she's hilarious and her humor's wrong and twisted. And, but today when I was just like, I don't know, when I was feeling on the high of like the Democratic convention and like nobody's perfect and they're all have done stupid shit. I think I was on the high from just watching clips of the Democratic convention so far. And then this morning I was scrolling through and seeing her shitting on everything. I just wanted to be like, shut up. You know, like, shut up, Lady Bunny. Like, if me and her were in an argument, she'd tear me to shreds. I mean, I give that to her too. But just this morning, I wanted to be like, just shh. And
well,
I mean,
so we live it. I'm doing my damn best to kind of like let everybody kind of understand the moment that we're in. We're in a moment where the entire system that we have used to our advantage with freedom of speech is unprepared to handle gish galloping. So I want everyone in our country to understand what this term is. Gish.
Explain to me, dude. I do not know.
Gish, galloping. Give me any topic. Say something you like.
That I like, or just a topic?
Yeah, just anything.
Deportation.
Well, you know, deportation goes all the way back to when the colonists were here. And before the colonists there was deportation going on with Native Americans. And, you know, and deportation is really just a conspiracy by the corporate oligarchs in Russia that they've slipped under that. Like, so gish galloping is when you take and bombard the space with completely irrelevant and fallacious arguments so that the argument can never actually happen. Because now you've got to spend time knocking each individual one of these things off before you can talk about anything that makes any sense. And that's what is prevailing within the kind of post-Trump space of our free speech. We are in a social media world applauding and promoting, and this is going to sound very like conspiratorial, but algorithmically, people who just talk really fast and throw things out really fast to promote them as if talking really fast means you're smart because, hey, I said a bunch of things. I said 10
more
things,
words
you
per minute than
you only
yeah.
struck down one of them. It's because I don't have 50 hours to strike down the other 9 things that you said. So, and that's a lot that's what Putin does.
Yeah.
So like Putin, and that's part of how it's a system of control that is used that, this is what was perfected by Goebbels. Like, this is what's going on in Russia. Like in Russia with the Ukraine thing is like, they're Nazis. Well, they're not. But now you only have an hour of news to discuss a topic. 10 minutes of that now is devoted to the idea that these non-existent Nazis are there.
Yeah.
And Fox News is doing it right now with this idea of this migrant crime wave that doesn't exist.
Right.
They
keep talking about it. They keep talking about it. Keep mentioning
they've
it.
done
People are going to
over
say,
1,000
"Oh, I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that."
1,050 plus segments since the beginning of 2024 on a migrant crime wave that is non-existent. And they did the same thing with CRT. We can't let CRT happen, and they ran all these things on it. And so now you've got to have this conversation about CRT, which is a thing that doesn't exist in schools. Like no elementary school or middle school or high school is teaching this, but now we've got to talk about it. And they're doing the same, and that's kind of what's happening, this gish galloping moment.
Gish galloping, that's like my favorite term.
We don't have a way to strike that really down, to deal with it within kind of our context. But you know who does? France. What just happened with the Olympics? Have you seen what's gone on? Has this one missed you?
You mean the pole vaulter? The diver?
No, I mean the pole vaulter.
Remember, I'm very simple.
The boxer.
Right. That people thought she was a trans, and so
Rowling and Musk assert that she was a trans person. Well, guess what? That's illegal in France, and so they've all been sued by the country of France. And you know what? Guess who hasn't posted a single thing to Twitter and has deleted 36 tweets from Twitter? J.K. Rowling. She's been completely
Isn't that
silent
disappointing?
since that lawsuit came out.
I've not been a huge fan of hers ever, just because I'm not a big fan of the series.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, by the way, the actual kind of origin of that whole thing is that this incredibly corrupt boxing agency based in Russia, this girl, this female from Algeria, where people get killed for being gay, let alone trans,
right,
beat a Russian boxer. So the Russians
who started crying, right?
Her.
Because she was like, because I said,
no.
She said,
so this is a
that's
year
a different
before
one?
the Olympics. So this is where the origin of the story comes from.
Oh my
and
God.
they're saying, there's like, oh, well, this, international boxing organization disqualified her for
I only knew like the first bit of the story.
It's entirely because she defeated a Russian boxer, and so in order to move her up in the ranks, this Russian organization then made this completely fake claim that would take her out of the competition because they were the regulatory body, which is why the Olympics has completely divorced themselves from that regulatory body. Their rulings have had no impact on the Olympics because they're an utterly corrupt organization in Russia.
Jesus Christ, you just opened up a whole bag of worms that I never thought about. I was just like...
Delicious worms.
I just wanted to make fun of that breakdancing idiot, but whatever. Okay.
She's a fantastic moment, isn't she?
She was. She is. So we were going to talk about amateur gay military porn. Is that all about your third book?
So, yes and no. I mean, so book 3 is about... So my lead character's name is Brad.
My cat's about to murder the other cat. 1 second. Zorro.
Nice. Pussy fight.
One of them's sleeping, and the other one was just standing next to him about to pounce. Okay. Yeah, he does the whole... But I think I just diffused the issue. Okay, I'm back.
All right. So my lead character's name is Brad in the Gay Marines story series.
How old is Brad?
Brad is 22 years old.
What branch of the military is he in?
He served in the Marines. He's deliberately meant to sound like me. Because when I started writing these...
Power about him.
Absolutely. I'm no longer a larval gay. I've gone through the gay stages of bottom green. It was like, we're back past pure bottom to accidental verse to top under duress to...
I just found out the other day?
Consolation verse.
I just found out the other day what side means. Have I been living under a rock? Because I don't remember where the conversation happened, but we were somewhere the other day where the term side came up, and I was like, oh, yeah, I have seen that on, like, Stiffies, Grinder, Scruff. And then I never knew what it meant, and I was like, a side. Like, they like to spoon. And now someone told me that it's just a term that means someone's not overly interested in the top-bottom roles, right? They just like to do other stuff besides intercourse.
And everybody gets, if it makes them feel better, everybody gets to there. You and I actually have a mutual friend who is that we'll talk about after the show, because I don't want to bring people up. But
Wait,
he's
can I bring up one person?
Hot. Yeah, bring
Are
up
you still
anybody
friends
you
with Boomer Banks?
He's still my best friend. Yeah,
I didn't
he
know
wrote the
that.
forward to book 2.
He's dropped out of my peripheral. Did we have a fight? And like we're not friends anymore? I don't think so, but I don't remember. I don't think so, but I haven't seen Boomer like on any of my social media. Maybe just has he irritated me so badly I blocked him, or vice versa. Anyhow, that was one of my very few questions I had in like the 20 minutes to get ready for today that I put down. I'm like, are you still friends with Boomer Banks? Because me and Boomer Banks shared a bathtub.
Everybody who's listening can go tell him that I'm about to talk. Boomer is somebody who doesn't particularly like when people talk about him, but there's nothing that I would say about him that I wouldn't right in front of him.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you guys were buddies still, because that made me happy.
Yeah. So here's where people kind of go wrong with Boomer, which is hard for me to call that because I usually call him by his real name. But like, Boomer is a person who has their finger on the pulse of what is about to happen. And you can't take it personally if that's not you. And I don't take it personally. And so, like, I understand that I come in and out of style. Like, you know, like my varsity jacket that I wear.
You just had
it's not always in style.
You just had a long hair phase for a couple years too, but
for 10 years. Oh my God.
Anyhow,
yeah, I'm so glad
this is the way my brain works. I'm sorry for those that are listening. I just have all these thoughts I want to say all at once, and they're just coming out. Yes. Okay, we're talking about Boomer, and then his fingers on the pulse, and if you're not your style, good. But then you also had your long hair phase. Looked great. You did good with long hair.
So I didn't have bad hair. I have a good head of hair. But, like, hair is super annoying. It's so annoying all the time. Every time you want to walk out in a breeze or eat soup or suck a dick or lay down or like it's always in the way. You want to take a shower?
I'm just imagining
you're going to feel that shower in your wet hair for 2 hours. Like,
I'm just imagining you sucking this big old penis and you're like working so hard and your hair's all sweaty and your hair's stuck to your forehead and his penis and you're just like,
it's
and then you're like,
awful. It's not
like,
fun.
You don't know if it's your hair
you've got
her hair or his pubes.
You've got
good hair though. It's so thick and lush and like it's just good. You can tell when it's short. Anyways.
Yeah. I just got my haircut too, so. But no, like, people can tend to take it personally, and I understand that. But, like, you got to realize that when sometimes you're not really what's it and happening in that exact moment, and it could last a week, it could last a year, that his ability to move on to what really is the next it thing is what attracted him to begin with.
Is he still in the adult business?
Superpower.
I need to have talked to him, I think. I didn't know if he was still putting that dick to work.
And he's DJing, and he's wonderfully happy. He's got an awesome boyfriend and a cute dog named Buster.
Wasn't he on some reality TV show about adult actors too? Okay, I need to have. You know what this says? I need to get him on.
Of X-rated NYC, and I'll get you guys talking to each other about him being on.
Yeah, I miss Boom Boom. Maybe Boomer not in my life has been that hole in my heart I've been having for the last couple of years.
20 years sober.
I'm impressed. I had 19 years sober.
Let me hear you say way ho
again. I had 19 years sober, but now I drink again, and that's an issue. But that's for another day. Hugs. Okay. Where can people find your shit? I mean,
so you can find beautifully written.
Where can people find your incredible, impeccable stories and follow you?
So I mean, man, this is the hardest thing sometimes about being a writer. It's like, well, I've written a book, and people are like, oh, great. And then they read it, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe your book is actually good.
Yeah.
And it's like this backhanded insult. But, like, the reality is there's a lot of not good books out there written by people you know. And so I don't, like, fault anybody for coming to that realization of, oh, wow, your book's actually good.
Wow.
So all of my books are available on Amazon, and I have a Patreon that's just Edward Stout. that you can find me at. Do use my Patreon. And I have another book series coming that I have been hammering at, which none of which is published yet. So I've got 3 books that are published, and I've written 3 more books. So I've got
Jesus
3
Christ.
entire more books.
You got a lot in you that needs to come out.
A fantasy series that I started, written in a very different tone of voice, but it still does what's kind of the core of my play, which is moral ambiguity and my use of time and how I love working with time and elongating time. But you and I, we brought up J.K. Rowling, and J.K. Rowling has pissed me off so much that a friend of mine said, you should consider what it would be like to write a book that is in that type of a magic school space centered around a trans character. And my response was, you can't just slap trans on a character and kind of do that.
Right.
If you were going to do that, you'd really need to be like, why does the character have to be trans? What is the story? What's going on here? And so I have now written 3 books of the Tales of Ulta, which follow Mace Morningstar, which is a 14-year-old black trans witch who enrolls into an anti-colonialist alternative magic school in California set in Hearst Castle.
Whoa, those are so many words. It sounds very, very cool, very intriguing.
What
inspired this? Was it just like current topics and like people like J.K. Rowling's like doing and saying stuff that's like harmful, and then you're like, I need to sort of combat this?
Huge Harry Potter fan, and she was getting Janelle Wilbanks, who's also an aspiring author. She was so annoyed at her just hammering on this, and it's like, she's not being forced to speak on this topic.
Yeah.
She's voluntarily, repeatedly bringing up this topic that she's on the wrong side of and doesn't need to be, because most of her fans do not agree with her on this. So just like, why are you participating in this conversation?
Yeah, what's
happening
your end
with trans
goal?
people is none of your damn business.
Yeah,
it's not your business. It doesn't affect you.
Well, I mean, she's super famous because of her books, but like, I feel like this day and age, like anybody with a telephone and like an Instagram account feels like they need to comment and give their opinion on every single matter that comes out. Like, it's just like,
no.
I find myself holding myself back sometimes, being like, oh, this pisses me off. I'm going to just go off.
Does it need to be said?
I don't feel like it adds to the party. Does it need to be
said by
me? It doesn't add to the
Does
party.
it need to be said now? The 3 rules. Like,
does it? Yeah, and I do catch myself that times too, because I just get pissed. Even earlier when I posted that stupid stuff about Lady Bunny online. I'm like, you know what? That's stupid. That's just putting more negative energy out there. I didn't have a point. I didn't want to argue her. I just wanted to be like, shut up. And also, like, if she like angrily retweeted like and called me a fucking twat, I would have been like, that's great publicity.
Yeah. I mean, in your defense, she's very much operating in the mantle of divine. And there's nothing better than being yelled at by somebody who's in the mantle of divine.
Yeah.
Like, that's the point.
That's
like,
also,
the outrage is the point.
I'm like, bitch, come and roast me. But I'm not even in her. I'm not even in the same atmosphere as her. I do have a question I wrote down. You're someone who's followed like lots of gay blogs and media and all that kind of stuff for like a long time. Is there something you feel like gay or queer media could do better?
Lots of things. Yeah.
That was a question for one of my guests that canceled on me this morning. So I'm going to give it to you. What do you think gay media like do they have a role to play, because like popular blogs like Queerty and other ones like that, do they sort of have a responsibility to the community, or should they just be able to post whatever they want to?
They absolutely should be able to post whatever they want to post. I'm not gatekeeping anything. We've come into this moment, unfortunately, within our ability to communicate, that they've had to close themselves off to open communication. Like, trying to contact one of them has become something that is almost an impossibility. If you don't know somebody at that publication, you are never going to contact them.
Like for submissions and stuff like that, yeah.
Because of that, they either have to live in the comments or ignore the comments, but like, to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on, it is not kind of working for them. And so what I have postulated since 2012 is that we need to band together as a cohesive series of brands that are piggybacking off of one another in chosen kind of a way to kind of split that up so that we can have that plurality of voices. Midas Touch Network, are you familiar with them?
Not very much. I'm sorry.
So there's this liberal political channel on YouTube called Midas Touch. And what they have done is they've said, Legal as Fuck is a legal podcast that has a very liberal kind of a slant to what they're doing. They're saying,
gay-centric or just like queer-centric? No, just in general.
This is just liberal. This is just a left side politics YouTube channel. And they said, well, why don't you keep releasing your videos on Legal as Fuck, but also release your video on Midas Touch with a little lead-in that says Midas Touch. And then like Adam Mockler, who's this awesome Gen Z TikToker and YouTuber, they've approached him recently and they're like, hey, why don't you join Midas Touch? And so they've gathered these brands under themselves. And the reality is that now you've got a whole host of great content creators, all created content that you can release on the central channel all day long. Constant programming. And they now have more YouTube followers than Fox or MSNBC does.
That's almost like
3 million.
That's almost like when you take a brownie batter and a cookie dough batter and you build it all together, and then instead of having them separate, you can just have them all together. Well, it's even yummier.
Yeah, I postulated this to both Out and brownie. Advocate in 2012. This was part of my brief on the future of gay media that I submitted when I was in my fancy job working at the company. This was the future of what we should be doing. And we still don't really have that for the gay community, but I think we really, really need it. We need to have this kind of cross-brand kind of experience made out of what we would now call content creators. And then I was just referring to as social personalities. Like, I think we really kind of need that. I think we need to have our kind of central gay channel. But, you know,
yeah, it's all about the branding as well. Like I'm so like people are always commenting on posts that I do and like things that I talk about, and a lot of times people are really tired about saying, do you have to announce this person as like a queer artist or a queer singer or a queer politician so some guy came out recently who was I don't know, golfer, race car driver, some sport, and I was like, guy, you know, this so-and-so comes out as gay, and like people were like, do we always have to call out somebody? Is there going to be a day and age when we don't have to like say celebrate when someone comes out? And I'm sort of caught in the crosshairs because if I didn't put in the title like this guy came out as gay, no one would care about this person, and then it's like a hashtag in the title to get people's attention. I think it's something weird. Like, and I also like don't want to like on my website. I'm squashing again. I started to bring back my website again. I don't want to do it, but I was like, I didn't want it to call it a queer website. It's gay website because I post a lot of shit that's not queer or gay, and it's just like, can we just get rid of those terms or labels, or do we have to keep them forever? At what point can we just not use those labels?
Here's the thing. What's about the answer? Labels. If you go to the grocery store and there's a bunch of bottles with no labels on it of blue liquid, which one's got the dish soap?
The one with the blue liquid in it.
They all have the blue liquid in it. How do you know that's not the toilet bowl cleaner? How do you know that's not the mouthwash? And so, as long as we use words to communicate, we're going to have to use words to communicate. Right. Like if we're talking about that, like it's so like, and this kind of gets into this kind of space that I heard you talking about before with a couple of different of your podcasts, which is this idea of kind of genre. Well, I think we really need to talk about the difference between target audience and genre. Like genre is like, I'm writing a book about a gay Marines. I am, I'm labeling that as gay. Right. But that doesn't necessarily mean that my target audience has to be gay. So what makes it the difference between that same book on that same theme being for a gay audience? And that has to do with special knowledge. So target audience is about special knowledge. Like going into, or any of these books that I've written, I could just throw out field day. What's field day mean?
Right.
Now, if I'm talking just to Marines, every Marine knows what I mean.
A field day.
But if you're not a Marine, You have no idea what this
It's
term
when you
means.
go out into a field with a picnic basket and you guys all have a picnic and cut cheese
It's a
and eat
deep
sausages.
cleaning of your apartment.
I don't want that.
Exactly, but like I douched for this. So that's when we get into special knowledge, and that's when we talk about like target audience of like I'm going to talk about gay things, and I'm going to talk about things in a gay space. Am I going to use the word top? And if I use the word top and I use the word bottom and I use the word verse, do I need to qualify the definitions of those things? Because if I don't, now I'm talking to a gay audience or giving an extra lift to an audience outside of that audience that wants to participate.
But like
So,
when you're
like-
promoting these books though, like do you go to mostly like queer platforms or queer media outlets or queer publishers or do you want to
Well, I mean, I'm trying to write these books where if you were to gender switch these characters, the narrative would collapse.
just slap trans
These
on
stories, well, these stories only make sense if the characters are gay. And that is, that's one of my bars for as I'm deciding, is this a story, that fits my criteria of things that I need to write? And it's like, if I could gender swap these characters, that's not a gay Marine story that I can add in here, because that's not what I'm doing. So what do I mean by that? This porn situation between Brad as a gay character and two other straight characters wouldn't function if the characters were all straight and it was a gay guy going with two straight characters.
In the book, do they film porn? Or is it just thought, okay, I wouldn't show, I didn't want to give stuff away, but I was also curious to like, if actually they film it.
You're in the room.
In the room.
You're in the room.
How do they find them?
Watching it happen.
In general, like when I've even watched all those porn videos on Pornhub and X Hamster and what have you, I'm like, even the ones that I feel like it's generally guys that are coming in that are like straight military or just like straight broke guys. I'm like, how do they find them? Do they put ads in Craigslist? They're like, there's this one guy. Get this. There's this one guy on Twitter. He's supposedly like, I think he's in San Francisco. He's an older gentleman, and like, for the lack of better words, he's kind of gross. But he's always like finding like homeless dudes to kind of bring back to his hotel and blow. And I'm like, how do you approach them? Curious minds want to know.
What years were you in Hawaii?
I was in Hawaii several different times. I was there in 1999.
Okay.
I was an infant. And then I was there again in 2005 to like 2007.
Okay, so 2005, when you walked down to Queen's Surf.
Oh, I went into that bookstore with the rooms in the back.
All those brand new benches that are sitting there facing the ocean so you can sit and watch the ocean. But the last bench, before you get to the walkway out to Queen's Surf, faces the street. There's a guy, and I don't want to name him because he's passed on, but he had the city change that bench facing the other way because he said, what if some of us want to watch the people? And he used that bench to watch Marines and surfers coming out of that parking lot by the zoo.
Yeah, that's right.
For potential models.
I want a bench right there at the shower, and I'll just be like,
yeah.
Wow, that's a crazy story. I love that story,
Yeah,
and I love talking about it. Because I know that entire corner you're talking about. That's crazy. That's insane. Brett, we're gonna wrap this up. I
thought you didn't do that anymore. It's not the 90s. We don't wrap it up.
You want to hear a secret? You know what, Brett? This is going to be a really sincere comment, and it's kind of really crazy, but you're so much smarter than I thought. Like, I'm not even kidding. Is that like something you don't say out loud? I'm impressed. I'm impressed with our conversation today and how articulate you've talked about your books and your stories and like just in general. I honestly, that is a true, honest, like embarrassingly awkward comment, and I hope you take that as like a praise and it's a compliment.
I absolutely take it as a compliment, but I also want to make sure that I address the fact that, like, because my mother is this monolithic, amazing woman back in Iowa who owned one of the best car washes in the Midwest for 53 years, and, like, I've grown up as a representative of that woman, and because of that, I've been aware my whole life that what I say and do reflects upon her. And we now live in a world of social media and a world of reality TV where these people haven't grown up on that. I have been lucky to have always like realized that I have to think about how I say what I'm saying, because and consider how what I say could adversely affect other people. When I come on your show, I need to be the best guest I can be, because if I'm a piece of shit, it makes you look like a piece of shit because I'm here as a guest representative of your show. Like, but it speaks to your choice. Right. And so it behooves me to be the guest that you deserve to be on your show. And like, so like,
I love that a lot, because like I never have claimed to be the smartest person in the room.
I wouldn't claim you're the smartest person in the room either.
It's obvious. But what I do bring to the table is I have a lot of heart and I have personality. And so like when I bring these things, I had a friend the other day who knows nothing about I have a nice D.
You do.
God praised me in my D zone, but not my B zone. But I had someone the other day who knows nothing about my history with accidental bear. They're part of my animal world, so they don't know anything when I was like more of an influencer. And so when I told them I was starting a podcast, they said, "What are you going to talk about?" Because they had no idea like anything about me. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to talk about art and culture and just things like get to know people and share like what they're doing." And it was just, it made me think though, like, oh, who am I to talk about things with people? That's sort of like, I'm still finding my place in all this. Like, I'm not claiming to be the smartest, that. It's like, I have a little bit of a personality, I have a microphone, and I have interest in creative people doing cool shit. I think that's my elevator pitch. And so I'm glad.
That's all it takes.
So thanks for chatting. It's been interesting watching what you've been doing and what you're up to. And I look forward to seeing and talking to you more. But I'm not going to leave without addressing the fish tank behind you in the room. That's so incredible. Like, how many gallons is that?
110 gallons of saltwater reef behind me. They're real living corals. It's all alive in there.
It's just become your background. But now I'm just like, I can't ignore it.
I'm sitting on my great-great-grandfather's settee from the 1860s, which is positioned at my table exactly here when I put this aquarium in from my first aquarium. It was during COVID. And so like we were moving into this space where we had to be online, and we're like, oh, well, let's design the rock work to be symmetrical behind you with these arches that kind of bleed straight through, put the settee here and get that all kind of set up so that it could create a, this kind of backdrop, because we didn't have backdrops in our home.
No. People were getting hella creative.
Like, So like, it was my brand.
I love it. I feel it. I see it. I hear you. And I guess it's going to go back to like one of the very first things I asked. What's a reef keeper? Manhattan Merman. What is that? Is that like a group? Is it like a swimming group, or is it a... So
it's specifically saltwater aquarium people. The biggest aquarium store on the internet is this place called Bulk Reef Supply.
And if this is a dumb store, you can pass.
Huge online retailer, and I was one of their first influencers. I was part of the original what's called the Reef Pack. And so I have a lot of people who do still message me and ask me questions about this, like, oh, what do you do for this and what do you do for that? Because I had a brand for not being owned by anybody. Like, I was really going to tell you what was going on in a practical sense of like, here are the things that you'll find online. This is bullshit. This is not bullshit. Either of these things work. Like, I was going to give that kind to you. And then also a lot of reef keepers, people who had saltwater aquariums, thought that my page was a breath of fresh air because it's not the only thing I do.
Yeah.
Most of the aquarium channels only post about their aquarium. And I'm,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not that.
I thought maybe it was one of those ones where you actually own like a merman tail and you like went into these big tanks and you swam around like a merman, like that one guy.
I used to look like
with that.
I used to look like Aquaman with all my long hair, and I had the saltwater aquarium, and like my day job is I'm a personal trainer for a fancy gym, and my primary thing I do at that gym is I teach swimming. So like everything in my life was around water.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well,
You're insane.
I just also changed the name of my podcast. At first it was Over the Hill with Mike Enders, because it was really going to be a play on like getting up there in age and like, but not being over the hill. And so like doing a lot of cool shit as being someone that's like over 50. But I kind of dissed that. That was too like on the nose. And I went back to something I've always said, like fear and ordinary life. I've always my whole life have feared like growing up to be like my next door neighbors, just like boring, basic, ordinary people, which we need them people too. But thanks for being on the very first episode of the new name of Fear and Ordinary Life. Because I don't feel like I don't feel like you're doing anything ordinary, and that makes me happy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you, Mike.
Yes, you're my sixth guest. And let's keep in touch. And I'm going to put links and tell people how to find you. And good luck with the third book. And we'll keep our eyes open on the next series that are coming out. Ulta.
Thank you. Ulta. Olta.
Ulta. All right, and we will talk soon.
Ulta. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.